This video addresses creating your final prize payout checks in the WinLABS tournament program. By this point, you have already awarded the prizes, which means that you've created your prize fund and you have ranked your people and you've assigned the prizes to the people. The next step at this point is to print your checks. You also should know your total prize payout so that when the checks are generated and a number appears that you are paying out, that you have an idea that that is the number that you should be paying out. So we're going to click on the create checks. And there's really only two things here that you need to worry about. Entering the starting check number, which comes off your check, and the checkbox for use the bowler's address for mailing labels instead of the entry contact. Basically what that is saying to you is if you check the box, the check is going to be directed to the bowler. If you leave it unchecked, the check is going to the team captain for distribution. And we'll show that when we get to the checks. So we're going to enter our starting check number of 123 and we're going to hit OK. And I'm going to leave the address unchecked. So what that's done is it's created the checks for the bowlers in this tournament. This tournament, if you look over to the right, is paying out $3,348. If that number is not what you're expecting, you want to delete these checks by just clicking on delete checks. And you want to go back to your determine winners, your award prizes, and verify that everything is correct. Printing checks out and mailing them cannot be undone. So at this is the last point where you can verify that the numbers that you are working with are correct. So at this point, we have our list of checks to print. You can sort these columns if you'd like, ascending or descending by check number, date, payee, entry, or status, or amount. One thing to note, the system will date the checks as of the system date. That date can't be changed. It can't be post-dated or predated. So we are going to go to the prize payout checks down here in our list of reports. This information here, you're going to normally print all checks. If you have a large tournament, you may want to use the second option for printing checks and do them in groups of 20 or 50 or whatever you're comfortable with. And if you've had a problem or you want to reprint them again, you can just check the box that says reprint checks already printed. But in this case, we're going to print all checks. The report options have nothing that you really need to worry about. And the output options have margin adjustment, but we use a standard quicken check in WinLABS, the check on the top and two stubs on the bottom and no lines. So that way it's easier for the program to print the check and line up correctly. So we're going to hit preview and it is going to generate our checks. At this point, you'd hit the printer and you would start the process making sure that the checks are in the correct way, face up, face down, whatever way your printer drags the paper in. And in this case, we note that this person won $19 in the tournament and the check is going to that person. He's the captain. So let's go to the next check. And we see that this person won $34.50, but the check is going to someone else. That's because this is the captain and this is the bowler, and we did not check that box that said to use the bowler's info. That's the difference between checking the box and not checking the box. Once your checks have successfully printed, you hit the close button and it asks a question. Enter the last correct check number printed. We're going to enter 170 and we're going to say OK. Now, it still says not printed. If you go back to award prizes and to print checks, it refreshes the screen and it shows those checks as printed. You should have a stack of checks. At that point, you move forward, and you'll notice that the printed number is the same as the unprinted number. One of the reasons why it asks you about the last check number is if it grabbed 2 checks, you're going to have to address that, manually write the check, or you can find the check that was skipped and reprint it. And you can do that by double-clicking on the person and changing the status to not printed and then print the checks again. This concludes the recording on generating checks in WinLABS tournament.